The other day, my childcare provider came to me and told me she literally had to pull two of my children apart because they were fighting. That's not good. So what I decided was we are going into a family recovery bubble. Hi, I'm Tessa from Build a Country Home, where I talk about how to create a peaceful home environment, raise independent children, and find wholeness for yourself. Now, obviously, this isn't a very peaceful environment in my home right now, and it certainly isn't conducive to raising independent kids. So after this physical altercation that my children had gotten into, I decided that we would go into what I have dubbed a family recovery bubble. And the point of this recovery bubble is to foster sibling relationships, to re-foster those really. My kids, for perspective, my kids almost never fight. I mean, very, very rarely, and typically if there is a physical altercation, it's because it's one of the toddlers who is still learning how to use their hands for gentle touches instead of hitting. Not my older kids, and this was my older kids, I won't name which ones. I will not name names so that I can protect the guilty in this case. But anyways, so this is a big deal, is that we typically have a very peaceful home. My kids get along really, really well. I'm not going to say they never have squabbles, but it's never really full-on fighting. So this was a big deal. So I thought we needed to make some changes. Family recovery bubble basically means that I canceled everything that was not within our own home. So all of our outside activities. I canceled some friend play dates. I canceled my in-home childcare because she usually comes with her kids, and that can, they're great kids and my kids have a lot of fun with them, but we needed to really take this time to focus on our family. So I had gotten a few questions in particular about how we foster sibling relationships in our house. So I thought I would do a little bit of a longer video. Normally I post these kinds of things to my Instagram stories. If you don't follow me on Instagram, my handle is at Build a Country Home. That's where you'll see me show up in my stories or in the posts on a regular basis. So go check that out and follow me if you don't already. So, but this is something that kind of required a little bit of a longer video. So I have my little note card here so that I don't miss any of the things, and I just wanted to talk about how we foster sibling relationships. And now this became really important to me when one of my eldest was my eldest two. I just had two at the time. They were quite young, and a friend said to me that her children were actually she was a little further along in the mothering journey than I was, and her children were speaking with their cousins, and their cousins said, "Oh, we don't have to get along. I don't have to like him. He's my brother." And my friend was relating this story to me, and both her and I were just struck by the fact that that's not true. You should get along with your siblings. Of anyone in this world, your siblings are the ones who you should get along with. However, that's not always the case. And her and I had a really great discussion about the importance of the role that we as mothers play in those sibling relationships, whether we are helping them or hindering them. So the first point, I have 7 points here that I'm going to go through. The first one is at birth. So preparing for your first child is about you and your partner and getting your home ready, your hearts ready, and your minds ready for this adjustment into parenthood. Number 2, you add in another child, whether that child is a toddler or an older child or maybe even a teenager. You need to factor in that there's a whole other person in this transition equation. And honestly, that's one of my favorite parts. One of my favorite things really is to watch people become parents. There's just something magical about seeing that shift in their definition of love and priorities when they have their first. But then another amazing thing is to watch kids become siblings. So some of the things, I'm just going to give you some of my own experiences, some of the things that we have done, and some of this kind of just made sense common sense wise, and others of it I researched and I talked to friends who had more than one kid at the time. For perspective, we had home births we have 5 kids, in case you don't know, we've got 5 kids. They're all about 2.5 to 3.5 years apart. So we had toddlers when we were introducing, as well as older kids that we needed to introduce a new baby to. We had home births with all of them, and my kids were mostly around for those. For several of them, they were sleeping and didn't wake up until morning, but they were all here. So keeping that in mind, some of the things might not be quite the same. If you like send children away, if you're having a home birth, but you send your children away for that time period, that initial transition, whether it just be the birth or for a few days so that you can adjust to your new baby, or whether you go to the hospital and have your baby there and therefore are separated from your toddler or other child. Birth prep. When you are pregnant, use words like our baby. It is not just a mommy and daddy experience. It truly is. This whole family is having a baby. Yes, you are the one giving birth and you're the one becoming a mom all over again. But it's really a whole family journey. Involve your kid. I think basic standard stuff is involve your child in the prenatal care. Let them come to appointments if you can. Let them listen to the heartbeat. Let them feel the baby kick. Let them play with the baby while they're in utero. My kids would put like little matchbox cars on my belly during pregnancy and see if the baby would kick it off. So they start developing that relationship early on in your journey. Even before the baby's born, they can start developing that relationship. And then when you have the baby, or like as you get closer to that time period, you can talk about like our baby is going to come and we get to take care of it. Make it a shared responsibility. Say, you know what? Mommy's going to need to nurse this baby a lot. And so I'm going to sit here. And when I'm sitting, sometimes we can read stories. Sometimes you could help mommy and get a cup of water for mommy. Oh, here's the diapers. Why don't you practice bringing a diaper to mommy? Get the child involved in all of these sibling care things. And you will be amazed at how much even a young toddler is capable of in this adjustment period. And I don't think that you need to, there's a whole movement out there to like buy the sibling toys, like congratulations on becoming a big brother. And there's not necessarily anything wrong with that. But you need to keep in mind that at that point you are shifting the focus from this is a family unit and from the blessing that is this baby, which you really want to celebrate, the blessing that is this baby with your whole family. And you want your toddler or your older child, you want your older child to celebrate that blessing as well, rather than shift perspective back to, oh, you might feel left out, so we are going to make you special as well. Well, your child is already inherently special and valuable to the family. And if you put too much focus the other way, you're going to actually create sibling rivalry and jealousy, because then they will say, oh, well, now I get all of these congratulations on becoming a big brother, so it's all about me. But one of the greatest gifts that we can teach our children is how to focus on each other. Man, Olivia, I feel like I could do a whole video just on fostering sibling relationships from birth. But that's kind of a short version, I guess. Short, I mean. I think that is the primary time to develop these sibling relationships. Is it's not about, don't ever say, oh, mommy's busy nursing the baby, so you need to wait. Yes, they are going to need to learn how to wait, but you know what? Mommy is nursing the baby right now, so why don't you come over here and we will, enjoy and appreciate this moment together. Bring them into the fold, make it about them. It's not about mommy's too busy with the baby to see to you. It's that mommy loves both of you and I'm going to meet this baby's needs and then I will meet your needs. That way you just minimize that desire for competition. So shifting. Number 2, I wrote down my point here. It says, Mom, high alert. In my current recovery bubble, and especially when you have phases that your kids are going through, you're going to need to be on high alert. Honestly, a large amount of sibling relationships comes down to the tone that we set in our homes and how we deal with altercations. And continuing with that, the way that we speak to our children, it's, you know what? Toddlers, hands are for gentle touches. Let's show your siblings love. How can we show your siblings love? If there is an altercation, help them to work through it so that, and give them the tools and the skills so that they can work through it. I don't think I can go into all of this in like a 15-minute YouTube video. I feel like this could be like a whole great big, the words that we say to our kids in this. But the short version of it is that you need to be on high alert and step in. If you know your kids, there's two different things. If you know that your kids are going to be, if they're in a stage where they're escalating really, really quickly, step in before it escalates. If they are in a phase where they are more relaxed about things and it takes them longer to amp up, give them time to try to sort things out on their own. And then if they can't, you step in and you give them the words and the skills to be able to solve these problems, to walk through these verbally with words before it stretches into, toy swiping or strangling, all those fun things. So the number 2 one, and this is for me and my family recovery bubble, is that I need to be on high alert. My ears are always attuned to my kids so that I can be aware of the tone changes in their voice. I can be aware of their physical movements. Some of the kids, if they start moving more slowly, something is wrong. And some kids, if they start moving more quickly, then something is wrong and I need to intervene before it escalates, because they're in a very high escalate. They escalate really quickly. Number 3, family devotions. Now, because we homeschool, we have our family morning time that, to be fair, we've been slacking on. Our morning time consists of praying together as a family, reciting some memory verses, singing a couple of hymns, things like that. Memory verses are golden. And if you are not a Christian or don't believe the Bible, you can still use some of the verses that are in Scripture. One of our verses that we recite is, be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other just as in Christ God forgave you. And that's Ephesians 4:32. So I don't know if you guys can hear one of my kids is crying. She is with her big brothers. Don't worry, she's safe. She is safe. She is loved. So being kind and compassionate. So that is one that even my 4-year-old, if I will say be, and he says kind and passionate. And so he understands the spirit behind that. Another memory verse that we use frequently is, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord, not for human masters. That's Colossians 3:23. And we use that in regard to every single thing that they do. I hope and pray and expect them to have high standards. So this is where our current family recovery bubble is kind of focusing as well on home care rhythms, as well as sibling relationships. So then I will say, whatever, and my kids say, oh, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart. And yeah, they roll their eyes and grumble sometimes, but they know it. And even if they don't say it out loud, they've heard it enough so that they say it in their mind, and they say, and then I can say, are you working for the Lord? Is this for the Lord? So family devotions and verses. Number 4, directed activities that force them to interact on a positive front. So we do things like board games. We like to go on family walks. And now family walks with a bunch of little ones is kind of an adventure. We put the toddlers, we also live in the country, so there's not like pavement and parks. We walk on gravel and dirt and through the fields and things like that, through the barn buildings. And we will take turns pulling the little ones so that my older ones can learn to give selflessly. And honestly, they have a lot of fun pulling the little ones in the wagons. So family walks, board games, it's pretty standard focused family activities. If you can get away from the home, take a vacation, take a weekend, and have like a screen-free weekend so that you can really look at each other and focus on each other. Some people think, okay, when they're like physically onto each other, yes, manually pull them apart, set them in different rooms until they cool down. But when siblings are not getting along, they need more time together, not less. They need to develop those skills to be with each other even when they are disagreeing, be kind to each other even when they are driving each other crazy. And that does not happen if they are apart, which is why you'll find a lot of times when siblings move out of homes, the relationship doesn't always get better. It's just the altercations are less frequent. Okay, so focused family time. Number 5, undistracted and undirected time together. So that's what my kids are doing right now, is they are having undirected time together. On one hand, we can kind of help them focus their times together. On the other hand, they need to learn how to play freely. Now, whether that be for my eldest is 13, and I said, you know what? Take the 20-month-old and you're going to have half an hour of, free play with her. Just keep her entertained. Your focus right now is on keeping her happy. So it's a little bit parent directed, but the other three, my kids are 13, 10, 7, 4, and 20 months. And the other three, my three middle ones, are just playing downstairs, and they have been all morning. And I basically just said, go scamper off and do something together. And when you first start doing that with your children and say, you guys go play in this area together, they will take time. That boredom will come in, that not knowing what to do, especially if you have, or somebody else has heavily directed their play for a long time. But give them lots of boredom time, and eventually their creativity comes out. They need, when kids are not getting along, they need more time together, not less. Number 6, partnership for tasks. Okay. This one also comes into home care rhythms and teaching kids home care, is that I will say to my 10-year-old, hey, take the 4-year-old and go do your morning chores. We call it a high 5. There's 5 tasks that they need to do. They make their bed, gather laundry, eat breakfast, what else? Clean the kitchen, and get dressed. So my 4-year-old obviously can't do every single one of those really, really well. I mean, he's pretty good at this point, actually, and I haven't taught him a thing, because my 10-year-old or the 7-year-old will take him under their wing, and they get to not boss around, but they get to teach and train those skills. And it gives the older sibling the privilege of teaching somebody, which also solidifies it in their own mind, these skills, but it also helps them understand where their younger sibling is coming from, that they just don't have the skills yet. So when it comes to even playing, I can tell my 7-year-old, you know what, the 4-year-old does not have the skills to be able to play this complicated game. So why don't you teach him? And now they kind of will set up rules and adjust the rules as per skill level. So not only are your kids teaching each other home care tasks, which is just hugely beneficial when you don't have to do all of that, but now your children can also teach each other how to play cooperatively together. They work cooperatively, they play cooperatively. And then the last one, but definitely not least, number 7, praying with them and for them. It is very straightforward, to be a praying parent. I think that most parents know that they need to pray for their children, and absolutely, because not only are you raising up those petitions to God, but you are keeping your desires for those relationships first and foremost in your mind, so that you can be on high alert when they are not meeting those expectations. When you're going down the wrong path, you can be a lot more attuned to where you're at in that journey, as well as praying with them. Teaching your children to honor and appreciate each other and pray for each other. Wow. I'm thinking of some of the things that my siblings have said about, or my children have said about their siblings in our evening prayer time. Now, my husband does prayers, like more child-directed prayers with get my math right here, my 7 and 4-year-old. He goes downstairs and does bedtime stories and prayers with them. And my 4-year-old, dear Lord, give my brothers sins, love my brothers, dear Lord, amen. And hearing that come out of your 4-year-old's mouth, golden. I tell you what, teaching your kids to speak about each other with honor and love. My older ones, I do bedtime stories and prayers with my older ones upstairs while my husband's downstairs. And my older ones will sometimes pray, please heal my brother's bruise from playing today. When my now 7-year-old, he was 4 at the time, broke his arm, I'm like getting emotional thinking of it, because it was so beautiful to hear my older boys at the time, say things like, please bless Jesse's heart. please heal his arm so that he can play with us again, so that he's happy and can run and jump. And teach your children how to pray for each other. And they learn that through example. You pray for your children, and then your children can learn by your example. Because again, it really comes down to you are responsible for setting the tone in your home. You are responsible for whether or not you have a peaceful home. And ultimately, you are responsible for teaching your children the skills and the scripts necessary to work out differences and get along in spite of massive, massive differences in personalities. Differences in personalities, differences in age are irrelevant. One of my closest friends is 30 years older than me. Age is not an issue when it comes to friendship. One of my closest friends, who is very close in age to me, I think we're maybe a year apart. Something like that. Anyways, she's completely different personality to me, and she brings so much sunshine and laughter to my life. And if I had grown up thinking that I could not get along with different personalities or different ages, I would have missed out on some of the most beautiful friendships that I could have had. And we do our children a disservice when we limit them to the standard of, oh, he's my brother, I don't need to get along with him. He's your brother or your sister, so you need to. They are a blessing that God has specifically designed for your family and for your life. So let's teach our children the skills and tools that they need to develop these amazing sibling relationships, because it is possible. There is hope, and you can start today. Yes, starting from birth is ideal, but you can start today. Even going through phases when your kids are at each other's throats, start today.